Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Up Close on METV. I'm Charles Clapsaddle, Station Manager for Manatee Educational Television, and it's our privilege to have with us today three individuals who make a difference in the lives of children each and every day. Today's program is dedicated to finding out about the Children's Guardian Fund and Guardian Ad Litem. And joining us today are three principals who will help discuss that. So please help me welcome our guest today. First of all, we'll start with Nancy. Nancy, tell us who you are and your position with the Children's Guardian Fund.
I'm Nancy Feehan. I'm on the board of directors of the Children's Guardian Fund. I think I've been there for 6 or 7 years at this point. And I'm also a former Guardian Ad Litem. I've been doing that for 7 or 8 years. And
we want to find out more details about what the Guardian Ad Litem program is. But help us welcome now Jasmine. Jasmine, you're the incoming president. Tell us about yourself and your position with the Children's Guardian Fund.
Well, as of today, I am the new president of Children's Guardian Fund. I've been with the organization for about 3 years, and I feel it plays such a vital role in the community. And it has a sort of complicated relationship that's a little bit difficult to explain to the general public, because the Guardian Ad Litem program is state-run. Mm-hmm. But the Children's Guardian Fund is a not-for-profit organization that raises funds to supplement the many, many gaps in the provisions that are made by the state for the care of children who are in foster care.
And we'll find out more about that in just a moment. And also joining us today is Alan Quinby. Alan, thank you for coming back here at METV. Tell us a little bit about your position with the Children's Guardian Fund and how you've been involved with this and how long.
I'm the outgoing president, and speaking about the incoming president in football terms, it's known as upgrading the position. I've been with the Children's Guardian Fund for 7 years, and I've been served as president the last 2 years, and I think we have an important role, and we're delighted to be here to talk about it today.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thank all of you for joining us. And Jasmine, I want to talk a little bit because, as you mentioned, it's kind of a complicated, but not that complicated relationship. First of all, tell us a little bit about the evolution or the genesis of the Children's Guardian Fund. How long has it been in place?
I think Nancy, who's been with the organization much longer than I have, mm-hmm. is very good on the history because she has some personal experience with it. But it was originally started by a group of guardians who sometimes, I think, were frustrated by the inability, sometimes appropriately, for state programs mm-hmm. and state funds to give children who are in foster care anything that approached a normal daily life. Mm-hmm. I can give you an example of the sort of difficulty that there is whenever you have state programming mm-hmm. And state funding. There have to be rules, and of course the rules have to have strict guidelines, but the guidelines usually don't fit the individual cases. Mm-hmm. If a child is in foster care, the child will be on the Medicaid program. The Medicaid program has rules. The Medicaid program says that you may visit the optician once a year, and if you need a pair of glasses, Medicaid will pay for that pair of glasses mm-hmm. once a year. But kids are kids, and if you get into an energetic game in the school playground and your glasses fall off and your best friend treads on them and you no longer have a pair of glasses, you need those for your schoolwork. But unfortunately, Medicaid is not going to pay for it, so who is going to pay for it? Guardians got very frustrated trying to answer those questions, and so the Children's Guardian Fund was established to come in and provide those answers. We are there, and when we check out the case, if it's appropriate, mm-hmm. we are giving the funds that enables the child who accidentally broke his glasses to get another pair so that he can do his homework.
And in much wider issues as well.
And much wider issues, but that was a very small example, because sometimes the small examples explain the whole.
So it really is augments, enhances the programs that are in place, but most programs are in place kind of fall short of the success that they would like to to have, so hence the Children Guardians Fund. Nancy, if you could give everyone a kind of, as a guardian ad litem yourself, can you tell us what the guardian ad litem program is and its responsibilities?
It is tough because it's tough to say, and we've got two different names, but we do work together, and it is essentially a public-private partnership. The Guardian Ad Litem program is now currently statewide, state mandated, but it actually started here in our 12th Judicial Circuit, which is Manatee, Sarasota, and DeSoto counties, back in 1980 as a pilot project. And the purpose is because when children are taken away from their homes because of abuse or neglect or abandonment, they're thrown into the court system, they're thrown into child welfare system, and everybody seems to be lawyered up, and everybody's got their own advocates and their own conflicting positions, but nobody's there just for the child. And so this program was started so that when a child is brought into court or brought into the child welfare system, an advocate is appointed just for him or her and stays with him or her every step of the way through the whole court process until they are found either a permanent home or they're able to be reunited with their parents or whatever the outcome is. And sometimes this guardian is the only consistent person in the child's life. They can get moved from foster homes and different schools, and it's really one consistent person who can make sure that this child's best interests are being served.
And that's a critical thing, because guardian ad litems are trained. You have a process and classes that everyone who wants to be a guardian ad litem goes through, and so they're brought up to a level of a specific training. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is, because you're working with children, there's an interview process, and then there's a federal and national screening. And then for background checks, and then also a 30-hour training program. But essentially that's the only, other than being 21 years old, that's really the only requirement, as well as having a big heart for children. Anybody is welcome to apply for, and hopefully will be interested in such a substantial volunteer possibility. I mean, it really is.
And as that advocate, any time that child appears before that advocate, that guardian ad litem, is there to work with the child and with the court system and the foster parent system and all of that. Is that correct?
Right. The guardian ad litem is appointed by the judge once the case is brought before him or her, and then that guardian does regular visits to wherever the child is living at the time, can go to the school system, is an actual party to the case, has access to all medical records, all police records, all documentation, and then physically goes to the home settings.
So it's a kind of a stabilizing presence to have.
It is, and actually in our circuit now, there are, sadly, about 1,100 children that are in this, I call it the system. And there are about 400 all volunteer guardians. And so it's a constant evolution to try and keep up so that we can have 100% representation, because those children that don't have a guardian appointed for them, then the staff, a very small staff at Manatee and Sarasota County, has to pick up that slack. And
it's a lot of slack to pick up.
It is, but the volunteers can take 1 or 2 cases, and it essentially is about a 10-hour a month commitment, give or take what's happening with your case. But that's, just to piggyback on what Jasmine was saying, the Children's Guardian Fund was started in 1995 to be essentially the financial arm of our 12th Judicial Program. Solely. And what we do is not only help the children individually to make sure that their needs are being met, like the example that Jasmine gave, but we also support the program and the volunteers, because they're spending lots of money on gas these days and to go to and from the places where they need to visit. They need extra training. They need, and even just to show appreciation for them, once a year we'll put on this big lunch, and it's an award ceremony, and it's very important to maintain you know, a little morale amongst the volunteers and let them
Exactly.
get to know each other, and then make sure that they're staying up to date on their training.
And also reach out to the community too to show what a great thing.
Right, to recruit and retain. Yeah.
So, but Jasmine, you know, as you've seen this program grow from 1994 all the way to this time, you've obviously identified needs within the program that you need to address. Programs like, you know, new volunteers, you know, changes in systems. So the Guardian Fund is kind of a vital part in the sustaining the Guardian ad litem. Is that correct?
I would think it's absolutely essential. We're trying to move in two directions, as Nancy said. We want to support the actual program itself, the guardians who work for it, and at the same time, it's really important to remember that the whole purpose is to improve the lot of the children who end up within the system. And I think we started out, I think it would be fair to say, that we understood that there was a tremendous lack in the sort of normal, trivial, everyday aspects of a child's life. We spent some time focusing on providing very simple things like birthday cakes and balloons when it was a young child's birthday. We tried to provide bikes and helmets to go with it. And gradually, as our program has matured and as the Guardian ad litem program has gained more professional experience, we've realized that those things are really important. It's important for a kid to have a birthday cake.
Or a prom dress.
Or a prom dress.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely, Alan. And the sad thing is that we often find that the children who are coming into care never had a birthday cake even when they were living in the homes that were neglectful or abusive that caused the transfer in the first place. But we need to focus on bigger issues than that. The system really does try its best, and there are many caseworkers who are extraordinarily dedicated, who are trying to achieve wonderful outcomes for the kids. But just the way it's set up means that it's rigid. And
There's a bureaucracy to it.
it's a bureaucracy. And children get moved for all sorts of reasons, and their school career and their school year is interrupted, and it's supposed not to happen. There are all sorts of rules in place to prevent it, but it routinely occurs. And so the kid has been removed from his home, put in a foster home, which often means that he or she will change schools. And then his foster home situation changes again, and he or she changes schools. It is not unusual to have a child who has gone through 3 elementary schools in a single year. And not surprisingly, children who've suffered through 3 schools in 1 year are not really performing at grade level. And once you start to fail in elementary school, middle school gets even more difficult. And for children who've been taken into care and for one reason or another linger there, in addition to all the other problems that they have to overcome, academic failure becomes an almost routine part of their experience in life. And the Guardian ad litem program, with the assistance of Children's Guardian Fund, is really trying to work hard on improving substantial things like academic outcomes for children. We're in the midst of developing a tutoring program where young children would get individual one-on-one tutoring, and especially with the teens, we've developed a system of peer-to-peer tutoring where students from New College actually volunteer their time to tutor the teens.
What a great opportunity. What a wonderful opportunity to do that. Now, as Nancy mentioned, as the number of children continue to grow, the demands on the Children Guardian Fund and Guardian ad litem continue to grow as well.
Yes.
And that's why it would seem to me why it's critical to kind of outreach and continually have not only the community support, but also to have that influx of potential guardian ad litems. And Alan, you've done a lot of outreach in the community, as Jasmine had mentioned and Nancy mentioned. There's a lot of outreach. Tell us a little bit about that outreach and how you continue to try to fund the Children's Guardian.
Well, I think we ought to focus on the volunteers. You know, it's very important that we reach out so that the community knows about what we're doing, and that within that context, volunteers would come forward and say, yeah, that's really a great program. And having come forward and become part of our program, that we make sure that they get recognition for what they're doing, so that we will continue to keep them. You know, there is a turnover, so that's one of the things we do. But reaching out to the community, we do that through talking to church groups, and we do a certain amount of publicity, we do a certain amount of events. We do 3 major events a year. We have a fall luncheon where we recognize outstanding people in the area that we're talking about.
You recently had one. You want to talk a moment about that and who you recognize?
Yes, Judge Duran Adams, who's a very special guy, was recognized the last time and got the first annual Lifetime Award for helping children. And he was a wonderful person to recognize for what he did. And he calls the Guardian Ad Litem volunteers heaven. I can't
Eyes
say
and
it.
ears.
What?
The eyes and ears of the
Eyes and
Lord.
ears of the Lord. He also calls them angels on earth. He loves them. They were his eyes and ears. So we do that. That was one event we do. And then we do, in the winter, we do a boat trip. We raise money by asking people to come out and join and come out on the bay on a very special boat, and that's an event that we do. And then in the spring, we do the appreciation lunch, and then finally we do a golf outing. So that's our way that we reach out, the way we try to get
Continue
money.
to put that information out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Can I
of course,
add
Nancy.
a second to that? It's, I mean, unfortunately, in the economy, the way that it is, and the unemployment level here, it's sad because the worse the economy gets, the more children come into the system. I mean, because of the frustration and the stress, and that often leads to abuse or addiction or whatever. And but at the same time, it's hard for nonprofits to be going out and raising more money to compensate for the additional needs. But we, as Alan said, we do probably 3 major events a year, but we also have looked towards some grants and also individual solicitation. And that's been very helpful mostly in our summer camp programs and during holiday appeals. And the more we get word out about the Guardian Ad Litem program and how important and what a severe need that has, because of it is a state program, and like so many, it's woefully underfunded, and that we do need to fill in the gaps. As Jasmine said, once people get an understanding of, oh yes, this is the nonprofit that's actually helping these kids who are, you know, in court, and the volunteers that are the angels that are helping them, then it all starts to make sense. And then they go, oh yeah, that's where I give the money, because they're the ones that get the help.
So people have a better understanding of the relationship, and that's important. And it would seem to me, and Jasmine, I think this as the incoming president, you're probably, you know, have your finger on the pulse on that. As you know, Guardian Ad Litem is out there, and the Children's Guardians Fund is there helping each and every day. You have to look at new programs and new initiatives to, you know, for all of these children that are out there. And some of those, I'd like for you, if you have a moment to talk about. One of those you mentioned about the tutoring thing, which I think is an excellent thing, especially having young people, college-age people, work with kids that are in the system. But you also have a closet for kids that are coming out of the system, that are aging out. And one of the things I'd like for you to talk about too is your Next Step unit. And if you could talk a little bit about those initiatives.
Yes. One of the good things is that it seems to be a moment within our community when many different sections of the community are pulling together to try to improve the outcomes for the children that are going through the system. And Magistrate Susan Malucci, who actually runs the teen court in Manatee, in the 12th Judicial Circuit, became so frustrated by the number of foster children who were coming through her court and acquiring criminal records while they were actually in state care, And what she also saw that much of the breakdown was happening as children reached the point that they were about to age out, and were finding themselves in a situation where they have no family. That's why they're in care in the first place. But on their 18th birthday, they are no longer foster kids. They are adults. And so, welcome to the world. Here you are. Step out. Make a life. Except for the minor problem that you're 18 years old, you have no experience of the world, you probably haven't done terribly well in school, and there is no family there to help you.
No support.
No support system, no network. And so Magistrate Mallucci, sort of working almost from scratch, developed a system whereby she thought, let's try and get a system of mentors in place so that when they take the next step into adulthood, we have some support for these young men and women. And we now have a clothes closet which is stocked with new clothes. She's found people in town who are willing to donate trendy things that kids want to wear. Jeans, designer jeans, and sweatshirts that people want to wear, not sort of cast-offs from older members of the community. And you know, these are important too. And also some clothes for interviews, which are also important.
Don't forget to mention tutoring at New College, which is really a crucial part.
Right.
You might speak to that.
And I think that's a critical thing. These are all tools that the Children Guardian Fund, in conjunction with the Guardian Ad Litem, continue to build so they can outreach and continue to help young people. And it would seem to me that, you know, with 1,100, as Nancy had mentioned, in foster care, sometimes it can be overwhelming, you know, with the number of volunteers, but also the types of services, the simple services, and I think, you know, doing a prom dress or a birthday cake and things, those are wonderful services, and they obviously have a great meaning for young people when that occurs. But the bigger picture, as you mentioned, is providing that stable partner that one can trust as you kind of go through this foster system. Now, does a guardian ad litem stay with the young person throughout the course of it, or is there kind of a changeover?
No, once the guardian is assigned to the case, actually becomes a party to the case. So there needs to be a very good reason for the guardian to not continue it. And statutorily, the case is supposed to come into court and be resolved within 12 months. Normally that doesn't happen, but probably 1.5 to 2 years is closer to what happens, and that guardian will be with that child throughout the duration, and oftentimes they'll stay afterwards, after the case is closed. Just
it would seem to me, but the quality and the caliber of the guardian ad litems that you have would seem that they would continue to have that interest and that dedication. So, and we're kind of going to wrap up here in just a few minutes, and I want to go around the table. And Alan, you've been involved as president, outgoing president now. What do you want the community to know about the importance of the Children's Guardian Fund as well as the Guardian Ad Litem?
I think the community should know that the important role that the Guardian Ad Litem plays in the lives of these kids. Remember, every one of those children has been abused, abandoned, or neglected. So it's really crucial that the role that's played by the Guardian Ad Litem when those children get in the care of the courts. And I would like them to know that that's going on, and that the Children's Guardian Fund is the supporting mechanism to make life bearable for those kids.
Thanks, Alan. Nancy, if people want to find out, obviously being a guardian ad litem has meant a great deal, and you can see the success when you're working with young people, and I'm sure they're very supportive of the efforts of each guardian ad litem. What do you say to individuals who perhaps have the time or the inclination to become a guardian ad litem? What would you say to them? And how do they find out about it?
In wrapping it up, that's going to be kind of hard. Hopefully we'll have other times to get into the very specifics and actually bring some volunteers on to talk about their specific experiences. But right now, I think anybody who's interested in either volunteering as a guardian, finding out more about the program, just go to www.guardianadlitem.org. It's one word, guardianadlitem.org. And that will have lots of information about it. You can go, if you're interested in just giving more of your finances as opposed to your hours, then you can go to childrensguardianfund.org as well.
And you take volunteers and guardian ad litems on an ongoing basis, is that correct?
Constantly. And there are 2 upcoming trainings. And there's one the end of this month, May 31st. That's going to be down at St. Thomas More, a nighttime and Saturday class. And then up in the middle of June, starting the 13th, there's one at State College of Florida up here. And like I said, those are 30 hours, and anybody can call one of the offices, Manatee, DeSoto, or Sarasota, to get more information about it and apply. You can apply online.
And I'm sure that you'll have a lot of people. But it's got to be very rewarding to be a guardian ad litem. It's got to be a rewarding experience to know that you're helping an abandoned, abused, or neglected child.
It's not just rewarding. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it's heartbreaking. They don't always come out the way you want them to, and you can't take all the kids home with you. And so you really do need to be able to be a strong person in that sense. But it is the most rewarding thing you can ever do, because you're sometimes saving these children's lives. And if you're not physically saving their lives, you're emotionally and just psychologically sometimes saving their lives as well.
Very eloquent. And Jasmine, I'm going to let you have the last word here today about not only the importance of the Children's Guardian Fund and in being that strong partner for Guardian Ad Litem, but also how you would encourage people to participate and to get involved.
I wish the whole community would become more involved. And one of the points that I want to stress is that perhaps there's a feeling sometimes that the children who end up in foster care are different from our children. They're not. Drugs ravage homes across all socioeconomic levels, and a very, very large proportion of the children who are coming into care are coming from homes where the parents have substance abuse problems. And just speaking from my own personal experience as a guardian, these are not all minority groups or immigrants who, are just new to the community. Lots and lots of children from what you would think to be very well-established homes come in and have their lives devastated. And so it is a community-wide problem, and therefore all the more reason to have a community-wide response. And the wonderful thing is that because we're a community where there is still a hefty proportion of retirees, we actually can have the community working across all levels. The young children who are our future can be assisted by a guardian who perhaps is approaching retirement and discovering that they have extra time on their hands. And in that way, the community really comes together in a unique and special way. So I do think from that perspective, as from so many others, the Guardian Ad Litem program and Children's Guardian Fund are doing something unique in the community.
Well, they certainly are. And we would welcome the opportunity to follow this up with a series of programs, perhaps talking to some guardian ad litems, perhaps talking to some people within the system that can further kind of illuminate this very important issue. And we're looking forward to doing that in the near future. Well, we want to thank you, Nancy and Alan and Jasmine, for joining us today and for talking about this really critical issue. With 1,100 kids and with the potential for that number to even increase, it's very important that the Children's Guardian Fund and Guardian Ad Litem continue to be there in the front lines to help protect children. And again, I want to thank all of you for joining us, and thank you for joining us on the special edition of Up Close on METV.